everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Felicia if you're new, and in today's video I wanted to talk about plants, of course, based on the title, but I wanted to cover something that you don't really see very regularly. There are videos out there, I'm sure, covering this topic, videos in abundance, but I just thought I'd share it just because, you know, I'm almost a couple years now into my plant journey, my plant parenthood journey, I should say, and I love my plants. If you've stopped by my channel in the past, ever seen any of my previous videos, you'll see that my channel focuses primarily on plants, indoor plant care specifically. I wanted to talk about the good and the bad side of owning plants and being a plant parent. In order to avoid making this a super long video, I'm going to split the video into two parts. So if you see a second video by me wearing the same outfit, the same, you know, red lips and hair and all that, just know I filmed it in one sitting, but I split it up into two parts. Let's talk about plant issues. Now, you know, a lot of us plant YouTubers, and I'm saying us because I'm including myself in this batch, we talk about our favorite plants, our wish list plants. Look at how beautiful my plants are. This is what I do to take care of my plants. But a lot of the times we don't always cover the issues that comes with being a plant parent. When I say issues, I mean bugs. I mean, you know, why is my plant doing this? Why is my plant looking like that? Why is it drooping? Why is it yellow? Why is it... There's so many different things that comes with being a plant parent, and nothing that you can't tackle. I truly believe that anyone can take care of any plant if you have the right growing conditions. So, you know, I live in the Northeast. Right now we're moving into cooler weather months, colder weather months, so I already know that a lot of my plants are not going to be feeling the weather change, and plants do tend to go dormant around this time every year anyways. And I remember my first year into being a plant mother, I purchased a majority of my plants during the summertime, and then come fall winter I was like, okay, I need to prepare these plants for this, you know, transition. Now, it's not like my plants are outside, they are inside, but still, there are some things, you know, that you want to get used to. So let's actually talk about that. So here in my note card, I have a range of different topics that I wanted to cover. And let's talk about brown and yellowing leaves, right? So what I call that an issue, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an issue. Sometimes it's something to be expected. Sometimes it is normal, especially around this time of year if you do live in a cooler weather climate. Seeing brown and yellowing leaves is very, very common, and it's not anything to be alarmed about in most cases. Sometimes your plant may yellow or they may go brown because there may be some underlying issues like root rot, perhaps overwatering, underwatering, but I would say in most cases, yellowing leaves, let's just talk about yellowing leaves for now. Yellowing leaves is pretty common. Falling leaves is pretty common. Sometimes it is a bit alarming because you're just like, oh shoot, what's going on here? But it's pretty common. It's not anything to be worried about. Now, if you're seeing brown leaves, maybe browning around the edges, the entire leaf is brown, then you may want to do a little bit more investigation because there could potentially be something going on with your plant. It could be overwatering, it could be underwatering, and I know that's really confusing, right? Like, how do you know? It's just one of those things that you just, you know, tend to learn over time when it comes to that particular plant. Now, every plant is different. It depends on the type of plant. It depends on the variety of that particular plant family. You may have one plant that shows you one thing, and you may have a completely different plant that shows that same exact symptom, but they may be doing those two similar things for two very different reasons. So that's just something to keep in mind as a plant parent. So I mentioned yellowing of the leaves, browning of the leaves, overwatering versus underwatering. Another thing that you know, may be considered an issue or something that you do want to kind of keep in the back of your head is just making sure you're giving your plant the right soil mixture. So, you know, as a new plant parent, we go to the store, we buy our plant, it comes already in its little mixture within the store. And I know for me personally, one of the things I used to do all the time, not saying it's wrong, but I just, you know, should have pumped the brakes a little bit, was that I would bring my new beautiful plant home and immediately change the soil. Just because in my head, I thought that was something that I needed to do. Now, there were a couple of instances where I absolutely had to change the soil. I've purchased a couple plant rescues in the past, and you know, if you purchase a plant rescue, then you might want to consider changing that soil because you don't know what's going on in the soil, especially if you purchase a plant from a big box store. Many big box stores that I've visited, I've noticed that, you know, the employee, which is not necessarily an employee of the nursery, the store's employees would just come with the hose and just water all the plants. They would give them all the same amount of water. You know, it would just come from the hose. They're not really measuring if they're underwatering or overwatering. But, you know, if you do decide to purchase a plant rescue, for example, you may want to consider changing out the soil. Now, going back to the topic of soil, you know, is your plant a plant that likes to be in dense, packed soil? Does your plant like, you know, some aeration in its soil, meaning do you want to put some perlite in there, some charcoal, some worm castings? There's so many different mixtures you can include in your plant, and I personally think it's a matter of preference. I like to mix my soil mixtures with organic potting mix combined with some perlite and then some orchid bark. I like to make it as chunky as I possibly can just to give the roots enough room to grow and to make sure the water is completely draining out of the soil. One of the first plants that I purchased as a plant parent, why can't I talk? One of the first plants that I purchased as a new plant parent back in the day, I'm gonna say back in the day now because it's been almost 2 years. But I know a lot of you guys have been plant parents for 10 plus years, but let me have my moment. One of the things that I did, I purchased the plant, didn't know what I was doing, didn't do any research on the plant. So I would caution, if you purchase a plant as a new plant parent, do yourself a favor and the poor plant, but do yourself a favor and do some research. It'll save you so much headache and drama in the end, trust me. One of the things that I did, I absolutely overwatered that poor plant, and I'll insert a picture of what that plant used to look like. I wish I had a picture of what it looked like when I eventually had to get rid of it. I was watering the plant, overwatering the plant because I was watering it every day. I didn't bother to make sure the water was draining out, so the water was pooling up at the bottom. And I couldn't understand at the time why that plant was looking so droopy and sad. Like, what's wrong with my plant? I was what was wrong with that plant. So, you know, you kind of live and you learn. And one of the things that I learned just based off of that one purchase is, okay, I need to do my research. It's not necessarily that I didn't have the right growing conditions, but I just didn't know what I was doing. I was overwatering the plant and not letting the plant completely drain. So that plant, needless to say, it had to go. It suffered from major root rot. So, you know, just make sure your plant has the right soil mixture and watering needs. The final thing that I wanted to talk about is pests. Pests is the bane of my existence. I am not a bug person. I just don't like it at all. But I did know that as a plant parent, it was something to be expected. So I just had to accept it and live with it. I've dealt so much with, I would say spider mites was the biggest issue I've had to deal with. I've also had to deal with mealy bugs, but spider mites, man. I used to have the most beautiful bird of paradise. I bought it relatively small. I'll insert a picture if I have one. I bought it as a small plant. It got so tall. It pretty much got as tall as me. I'm 5'4". Beautiful plant. But then it suffered spider mites. I cleaned it with a mixture of oil, neem oil, pesticide. Everything was all good. Spider mites came back with a vengeance. Cleaned it again. Spider mites came back with a vengeance. I put it outside on my balcony because I just didn't want to get rid of it, but unfortunately I had to let it go in the end because spider mites came back with a vengeance. I don't know if it was something down in the soil, which I'm thinking that's probably what was the issue. I just had to let it go, unfortunately. Will I purchase another bird of paradise? Absolutely, because again, it was such a beautiful statement piece in our home. But the spider mites, they won that battle, so I had to let it go. Another bug issue that I dealt with one of my plants, it was my little small Hoya baby, mealy bugs. One day I believe I had to go water the plant, took it out of its decorative pot. I have all of my plants in nursery pots. Took it out of the decorative pot and I was kind of inspecting it and I noticed like a little weird tan looking thing. Here's the picture right here. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is a mealy bug. It was my first, actually no, I'm lying. That wasn't my first mealy bug. I used to have a bromeliad. It was really tiny. That one didn't survive in my care either because it wasn't working out. I don't know if it was an overwatering or underwatering issue, but that one also had a mealy bug situation. And I just, again, I'm not a bug person. I have no problem with cleaning it and disinfecting it and doing whatever I have not disinfecting, applying pesticide to it. I have no issues with that whatsoever. But if I notice that the bug issue is becoming, repetitive and whatever I'm doing doesn't seem to be working, then I'm more than likely gonna get rid of the plant just because I don't want it to affect any of my other plants. And another common pest that you would find with indoor plants are fungus gnats. Fungus gnats are the most annoying pests out there. To me it is. And it doesn't do a lot of damage like say spider mites or mealy bugs would do, because those pests tend to kind of eat into the leaves, eat into the sap of the plant. They just kind of suck them dry. Spider mites to me is just more annoying than anything else. They're buzzing around the plants. I typically would get those little fly traps, but they're just so unsightly. I hate it. So one of the things that I started doing to kind of combat my fungus gnat issue was I started bottom watering my plants, and that has helped tremendously. If you're bottom watering, obviously you're not watering the plant on top of the soil, so it won't create that damp soil environment that fungus gnats love and thrive off of. And don't let them leave any type of eggs or larvae in your soil, because that's it. I did have to get rid of one of my Chinese evergreen plants because that plant was infested. I changed out the soil, I treated it with pesticide, neem oil, all of that. It was still, the spider mites just kept coming back. So had to go. So those are all the main issues that I've dealt with that I wanted to talk about in this first part of my video. Again, there's so many different things that comes with being a plant parent. It's almost like having a child, right? You gotta make sure you feed it water. You gotta make sure you're giving it right lighting conditions. You prune it. There's just so many things that you have to do. Now, trust me, there are plants out there that don't require any high level of maintenance at all, and those are things like cacti, ZZ plants, snake plants. A lot of those are like very, very low maintenance plants. However, even with those plants, you got to make sure you're watering it. You got to make sure you're giving it some level of light. So, you just got to make sure you're on top of those things. And trust me, as I said at the top of the video, anybody can take care of any plant. If you don't take anything else out of this video, I would just caution and advise that you just do your research and everything will be fine. Your plants would continue to thrive and be beautiful. So make sure you stop by for part 2 of this video, where I'll cover all the fun and all the benefits of being a plant parent. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.